Okay, so let's get started with the installation. We're going to see the installation on the VirtualBox demo machine, and we are going to stick to our partitioning scheme, which was this home partitioning. Okay, so we are going to use this particular partitioning scheme. So now what is to be done is that the basic things you already have. You probably downloaded the ISO image, you have created a virtual machine, or you have a real machine. If you have real machine, you might have already created a pen drive. So what we are going to do is we are going to load our optical drive with the image. So I have this Xubuntu image. You can either select it, or if it is used earlier, it will show up here. So I've selected the Xubuntu image, and I'm going to boot this particular system over here with Xubuntu. Fine. So now the booting process will start. Once we have launched into the graphical interface, then we will continue. So I'm just going to select try and or install Xubuntu, and this will take a few minutes. So I'll stop the video here, and once the graphical interface is there, then we will continue. Okay, so here our Xubuntu interface has started. So whatever distribution you will use, that will have a live interface which you can use for testing it out and all, and usually they will have some icon or link provided to start the installation. So let's get into the installation. And as I mentioned, I'm going to assume that this is a blank machine. If there are any partitions or anything, we are going to either delete them, or we are going to just start with a blank this thing. So every installation comes with this standard steps, like select the language which you want to use for the installation and all. So we'll stick to English over here. Then let's see, it is asking me for the keyboard test. So you can try out the keyboard, just try out like the dollar symbol and make sure it's printing dollar symbol, because in Linux we are going to use a lot of dollar symbol while working. Just test out few of these keys and make sure it's working properly. Or if you know what is your specific layout, then you can select that. Or you could try the detect, it will ask you to enter this key, that key, and also you can just try that. Then here connect to the internet. Now if you are doing it on a real machine, then you could use the internet connection, and it will update your contents and download some software packages and use it. So I'm not going to use the internet over here, so I'm setting it do not connect to the internet. Also let me disable any network connectivity from here. Just a second, just otherwise it's going to take a lot of time. So we have disabled the network just to make sure it does not uses the internet. Otherwise we are going to spend a lot of time downloading the packages, just to be doubly sure. Now next is, it says how would you like to install, automated or interactive. Let's stick to interactive install. Fine. What you want to do is, do you want to install everything full features? Now this is going to take a lot of time, and there is a minimal install which we can do. So we are going to select the minimal install. We'll have a graphical interface and basic utilities, and other things we can see in the later on things, how to install software and all. So that would be great. So I'm just doing this. If you have enough of time, do install the full thing. So let's go to the next part. And here, do you want to install some third party softwares, like if you have Nvidia cards and any other specific thing? uh, so you could select some graphics or Wi-Fi drivers. If available, they will get installed. So we are not requiring it right now, and in any case it won't get downloaded because we are not connected to the net. Fine. Apart from that, Ubuntu and Xubuntu ships, it does not ships with any proprietary software by default. Fine. So it will still need the internet access. So let's skip this part. Now here, how do you want to install Xubuntu? Erase disk and install Ubuntu within advanced features. And here we will go for the manual setup because we have planned our setup. Okay, so let's go to this. Now here, this is the older one, and let's do one thing. Let's first delete everything from this. So now here we have the free space, we have the disk. You could create the new partition table if you want. Fine. So it could start with a new partition table, and you can work upon that if it was not there. We had already created the partition table, so we are not going to do this. Leave it as it is. So let's see what we were planning to do. Okay, so we were planning for this particular kind of scheme over here. Fine. So in this particular scheme, we have decided that we are going to have a EFI partition. So let me keep it here on top of other windows. Okay, so here we have this EFI partition, then boot, root, home, and other things. So last time when we did with the gparted, those were the partitions which it was displaying. Fine. So over here, the partitioning scheme becomes very important. We cannot change the partitions every now and then, so be careful while doing the partitions. Fine. So we are going to make these partitions, and these are a good setup. Now, this is not compulsory. You could simply make a boot EFI, and you could make a root. These are root and swap if you want. Only these three can also suffice. But if you're going to use Linux, use it properly and in an interesting manner. So let's start with this. Let's create a partition over here. So the boot EFI partition is going to be vfat fat32, and the mount point is going to be our slash boot slash EFI. It's not showing up, so I'll have to make it EFI. Okay, and size we have to set. So I'll just set it as, say, I'll settle between 300, 200, and 500 MB. So we have created one partition. Then next we want to create a boot partition. Select the free space and say slash boot, and here ext4, and we want to set this to around 1 GB. Okay, so let's not make it 1 GB here. Let's keep it as 500 MB because we are in a lower disk space. Okay, so we have a boot partition. Next we want to create a root partition, which will be around, let's say, how much we have decided, 10 to 15 GB. Now we have 25 GB of disk space. So we will, let's say, add a partition. We'll call it as root, and the size of this partition, let's keep it as around, say, 8 GB. Okay, let's put it as 8 GB, and okay, so this is 8 GB partition is created now. Then we want a swap and home, so let's make the swap first, then we'll make the home so that it's in the end. So let's create a home partition, and we'll give it the remaining space. So whatever is the remaining space is around, let's see how much it shows in GB. It shows 18 GB is there, so let's make it like 16 GB or 17 GB. We'll just leave 1 GB for swap. Fine. Now in real machine, make it equivalent to your swap space if you really want to hibernate and all. So again, with higher amount of RAM already available, you don't need that much of space, but somehow it gives a good feel to have a swap space, so we'll just have the swap space. And finally this one here, swap space does not have a mount point. You simply tell that it is swap space, and remaining space has been allocated. So now we are set with our system: boot EFI, boot, root, home, and swap. These are the partitions we have created, and then now we can continue. Keep in mind, till now the changes have not been done. You can abort over here in real life also, and nothing will happen to your hard drive. But again, keep a backup. A warning: always have a backup before you do this. Now we are going to create an account, user's account, and this is the user. The computer name will become Dexter VirtualBox. I'll keep it as Dexter's X Ubuntu Swadhyay.cafe. This is going to be our machine name, or we'll just remove the Dexter part. Why we want Dexter, so we'll keep it as this. So the username, the login ID is going to be Dexter. We'll give some password to it, and we'll give the password once again. Now since this is Ubuntu X Ubuntu, this user will be assigned sudo privileges. That means this user will be able to run the administrative tasks. Root password will not be set. some other distributions, Fedora and all, will set the root password also and create a user also. So don't forget this password basically. Now set the time zone, select the country, or you could select it from here. Time zone is set to Asia, Kolkata, here, over here for us in India. You can select your time zone from here as per your requirement. Then here, this is giving me a review of my choices, what we are doing or what is going to be done. So let's tell it to install. Now this is simply going to get the installation process done. This is going to take some amount of time. Fine, you can see the command line also what it is doing. Fine, have a look at this, or you could simply keep it on this screen. So again, I'm going to stop this video now, and once the install this part is completed, then we will continue with the video. Okay, so now the installation is complete. You can either continue testing this one, or you can start the system. So obviously, since it is done, we'll simply restart the system and test our setup. Okay, so just say restart now. So we are restarting here. The first start could take a bit of time, so don't worry about this. So here is our login screen. Give the login password and say login. Okay, so we have the basic system added, and none of the applications are there as such, so we can add the applications later on. Okay, so that's it. You have a working system. You can press Ctrl Alt T to get a terminal, and you can run your commands over here.